Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Teaching Tips Tuesday. As always, we're so happy to have you with us. Today we have Megan Mogan. She is a deafblind specialist with the Arizona Deafblind Project. How are you doing today, Megan?
I'm good. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for being on. So, first big question up front, what is the Arizona Deafblind Project?
The Arizona Deafblind Project, I'm not sure if folks in everyone knows, but every state in the United States has a deafblind project. We are funded by the federal government, the Office of Special Education Programs. And basically, we have a grant that says, please fill in the gaps in the knowledge and skills of folks in the area of deafblindness. It's such a low incidence disability anytime you have combined vision and hearing loss that we find. I don't know about folks who are listening, but I know in my teacher prep and training, I received zero teacher prep and training in the area of combined vision and hearing loss or deaf blindness. So, our goal is to really equip educational team members, equip family members with those knowledge and skills so that they feel empowered and able to work with anyone who is touched by a child or youth who's deafblind.
Deafblindness is another, on top of just deafness or blindness, a thing that the public understands even less. And that not only is it on one spectrum now, it's on two spectrums that can be running in two totally different directions.
Exactly. And you'll see, you'll never meet two deafblind individuals who are the same. There's such a diversity in deafblindness, especially when it comes to maybe that child's sensory preference. Maybe they really tend to lean towards their use of residual vision or their use of residual hearing. And that's one kind of common myth we get is, I think when you hear deafblind, a lot of folks instantly go to Helen Keller.
The one instance they have in their memory, yeah.
Exactly. And so they think totally deaf and totally blind. And in fact, we have just over 240 identified children and youth here in just the state of Arizona. And almost all of them have some residual hearing and or vision.
So on this subject of common myths that you are dispelling, are there any other common myths that you want to bust right away?
Sure. So I think another common myth is that all students who are deafblind maybe attend the Arizona State School for the Deaf and Blind. And
insert your state school for the deaf and blind.
Right, or any state school for the deaf and blind. And under IDEA, children are educated in their least restrictive environment. So the educational team, including the family, determines where that child's needs are best met. And that can be in just a variety of different educational settings, including a school for the deaf or blind if the team finds that's appropriate. So I think sometimes folks might think that all children who are deafblind go to the school for the deaf and blind when that is actually not the case. Over 80%, again, of the students on our registry attend a school or are educated in a setting other than ASDB.
I did not know that statistic. I would actually, that is higher than I would have assumed. I've had 2 deafblind students in my career so far, and I was like, well, that must be relatively uncommon, but 80%, that's remarkable.
Yeah, and so that's where the Deafblind Project can come in as well, as we can go to that student's public education setting, their private school setting, a charter school, or even a homebound or home service setting, and work with any professionals or family members that feel like they'd like to gain some skills in educating or working with a child who's deafblind.
So you said you travel to them. Do you cover the entire state?
We do. We cover statewide, so it doesn't matter where you're located in the state of Arizona, we come to you. We have 3 deafblind specialists on our staff. Myself, I'm located down in Tucson, but cover the whole state. And then we have 2 folks, Pat Jung and Amy Trollope in Maricopa County, who split a full-time position. And as you can imagine, that Maricopa County keeps them very busy.
Oh yeah, I actually once shared a student with Pat Jung.
Oh, yep. And between the 3 of us, we have well over like 50 years of experience in deafblindness, and so and each of us has a little bit of a slightly different background, and so we feel like even if one of us maybe thinks, I don't know if I quite have a handle on this child, can you help me out? We can always figure out usually a way to support families or educational teams to make sure we get their needs met.
Nice. So how do you identify these students?
That's a great question. So we depend on referrals. And so if any individual out there, whether it's a family member, a neighbor, a medical professional, a teacher, a paraprofessional, notices that a child that they're working with has a combined vision and hearing loss, they can ask the family, hey, do you know about the Deafblind Project? And if so, we can verify that they're on our registry. If not, we would really appreciate that they pass our information along to that family. We have a website, azdeafblindproject.org. You can refer straight off of our website with the parents' consent and permission, or the family members' consent and permission. And we get referrals, again, from all over the state and from all different types of people. One of our most common referral sources is teachers of students with visual impairment. A lot of times they're just very, those educators are just very savvy, knowing, common syndromes and etiologies associated with deaf blindness. So if they have a child with charge syndrome on their caseload, or I'm trying to think of like cytomegalovirus, they know a red flag pops up. I wonder if the student's hearing has been checked.
Yeah.
Yep. And so we get a lot of referrals from our TBIs who just notice something's not quite going on, what they would think would be typical of a hearing child with a visual impairment.
Excellent. So it seems like you take a wide variety of referrals, and I imagine that is your best odds at catching these kids when you can.
Exactly. And it's so important because the earlier we, like in blindness and visual impairment, the earlier we identify children, we can provide services as early as possible to address what's really a multiplicative impact of combined vision and hearing loss. We always say in the field, it's never deaf plus blind, it's deaf times blind. And so we know that children with combined vision and hearing loss, without access to their environment, where they learn and live in, without access to communication, their learning and their development will be impacted. And so we want to minimize that lack of access as much as possible.
So we found our student now. Now we're actually getting the wheels on the road. What kind of services are you providing to these individuals in the field?
Sure. So we can, first of all, help out if a team is unsure whether the child would qualify as deaf blind or combined vision and hearing loss. But we can also come to the setting where the child's located. We can do programs, school, home visits, and consultations. We can provide specific training to meet the needs of whoever is working with that child or that youth. We cover a number of different training topics: assessment, communication, access to the general education curriculum, transition. And so, we're really there to, the full continuum of needs from birth to age 22, which is the age that a child or youth would qualify for our services. Our services are free of charge. We do not charge districts or programs or families, again, because we are funded by the federal government to do just what I described. And the training needs really differ based by the team or the family. So it can be one time, like a consultation or a single training topic, or it can be more ongoing and intensive, just depending on what the team needs.
However, I do not believe you provide like direct IEP service time. However, that's important to know.
Yeah. Correct. Yeah, we do not provide direct services to the child or the youth. Our job is to basically work ourselves out of a job to, transfer those skills, that knowledge onto those folks who are on the IEP as providing those direct services.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming and talking to us about this today. I think that a lot of folks are going to find this really useful, especially that this is a national program. I think that is going to be huge.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate you having me on. And please just reach out to Pat, Amy, or myself if you have any questions related to deafblindness here in Arizona.
Well, I have one more question for you today that I always have to end my interviews with, and that is, what is your favorite part of your job?
My favorite part of my job is getting to travel around all different parts of Arizona, parts I've never even been before, but to go into classrooms or programs and homes and just to see all the different really creative ways that people do provide access for children who are deafblind. You know, I've worked in the field for over 20 years, and I still find ways that people have just creatively worked to build a child's communication skills, to improve their access to their environment, and to just really come up with thoughtful and intuitive ways to connect with their students.
It is remarkable how people with no like training in a specific field, if you really care about it, if you give it the time to come up with solutions, what you walk into a classroom and see like, huh, that's really creative.
Yeah,
You know?
it's amazing, and it's by far my favorite part of my job.
All right, well, thank you so much again, Megan.
Thank you so much. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you so much to everybody at home for watching another episode of Teaching Tips Tuesday. We hope to see you next week.